Part of the blues style that a lot of people take for granted is some of the details like intros, endings, turnarounds, those kind of things. You have to, of course, understand how those work, or you get hung out to dry when all of a sudden the band stops and you got a bar to fill and you're looking around saying, who, me? Now, the typical intros, there's two of them, really. A band will call off a blues, they'll say blues in A, okay? And the guy who's leading the song will say, take it from the 5. Okay, now what does that mean? That means take it from the last 4 bars of the 12-bar progression. If we're playing in the key of A again, it would be taking it from the E chord. You play E, D, and then the last 2 bars. And now you actually start the 12-bar on the 1 chord. So you're playing a 4-bar introduction there. Now the last 2 bars of any blues progression are called the turnaround. And I guess the term comes from the feeling that you're getting to the end, you're going to turn around and go back and start it all over again. Another typical intro is to say take it from the turnaround, which means play the last 2 bars, which would be like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. And then start the 12-bar there. Now the progressions that we've been playing over have used both styles of turnarounds at various times. And if you go back and listen, you'll hear each one happening. How about endings? Well, typically, you get to the end of a blues, they'll stop in one of 2 places. They'll either stop on the 4 chord or the 1 chord. So you get to the end, it might go like this: 5 chord, 4 chord, and pop. And there's a little hole there, and you play a lick. So it'd be like 5, 4, and then. And of course, remember, always end on the 1 chord. I mentioned that earlier. All right, the other typical stopping place is on the 4 chord. You go 5, and then play the turnaround to end it. Either case, you have a 1-bar hole, and you got to play a lick in that hole. Now, it doesn't have to be anything spectacular. You're just keeping the time going. Play something simple, something from the heart, and it'll work fine. Okay. So as you listen to these progressions, you'll hear both of those types of beginnings and endings. And the way I deal with them is just to play the licks I'm already playing and just keep them going and not get startled because the band stopped. Okay? Now, a word I've mentioned several times, turnaround, very important. At the end of each blues progression, you got that 2-bar phrase. Now, what the phrase really is it's implying this. It's implying 1 chord, 4 chord, 1, and 5. 2 beats of each one. Okay? So you'll hear 2 types of turnaround phrases. One type of phrase is prearranged, and I'll show you a few of those. And the other type is simply a lick, just playing any old lick like you already play, and landing on the root of the 5 chord, because that's the last one. Now, all the stuff I've been playing up to this point, I've been pretty much playing the second type of turnaround. But the first type, there's a little system that you can use, real easy. Key of A. Okay, you want to play a turnaround. You'll find that the notes move in one of 2 directions. Starting on the 5th, right? Key of A, the 5th is E, right? I go up in half steps: E, F, F sharp, G, and land on G, the flat 7th. Or I can go the other way, right? Now what that sounds like is this. Here's the turnaround. And then go to the 5 chord, assuming we're going to keep going through the tune. Now that sounds a little bit bare, not much happening. So how do I fatten that up? Well, I'm going to stick in the root on the top, and I'll go. So instead of still in that same position and just walking down those same notes. Okay, so 5, 4, and then 1. Right? Now, the other set of notes is going from 5 again, but this time down the 3rd, the major 3rd in the key of A, C sharp. Right, so 5 chord, 4 chord, right? That's one you probably heard because a lot of people use that. You can also go the other way. Okay? Now where it gets interesting is when you start to take those ideas and screw around with them a little bit. For instance, here's one that was used by Robert Johnson, and then Eric Clapton picked up on it and became a real standard turnaround. Right? That's playing what we already played, but moving the notes down an octave. So I'm playing G down here on the 4th string at the 5th fret, keeping the A on top. Right? So it's the same phrase down an octave. Now once again, I'll use my fingers in my right hand to help me pick that, but you don't have to do that. You can use the pick. Okay? Another typical turnaround would be to combine those notes on the 4th string with the notes on the 2nd string. So you get this. Or coming back up. Right? Or to make it really fancy, play the note on top, the A, and then move the notes up underneath. Now that requires the use of some fingers in the right hand because you have to pick the lowest note and then use your 2nd and 3rd fingers to pluck the higher notes. Okay, that's a typical turnaround too, used by a lot of piano players, for instance. All right. Now, real common turnaround that you might have heard. All right. Now that's starting in the 9th position. Both notes at the 9th fret, 3rd and 1st strings, down a fret, down another fret, and then land with your 2nd finger on the 6th fret of the 3rd string, 1st finger on the 5th fret of the 1st string, 3rd string rather than 1st string. Okay. Now you hear some players play more elaborate versions, more melodic versions of those kind of turnarounds. For instance. Right? All that is taking the one we just learned and sticking a little melody in between the notes that we're playing. Okay? So slowly you've got the first 2 notes, 8th fret, 10th fret, and then 7th fret, 10th fret, right? And land, of course, on that 1 chord. Okay? Here's one that I made up. I kind of like it. It's one of my personal favorites. Right? Now that's kind of tricky, but what I'm doing is playing a typical little phrase, right? Which is the 5th, going down to the 3rd, the 7th, going down to the 5th, put them together, and then play a little melody on top. That's kind of complicated to show you, but you'll see that appear on the bottom of the screen, and you can figure the notes out just by watching it and listening to it a few times. Okay? So that's basically the story on turnaround. So if you know how to start the tune, end the tune, and play all the turnarounds, playing the solo is the easy part. Right? You just got to know a couple of licks, play a strong lick at the beginning, play a little variation, and then play the turnaround, you're done. You know, compared to blues players, a lot of rock guitar players are sissies when it comes to keys. Everybody wants to play an E and A, and then you say G, and oh man, I don't know if I know any licks in G. I'm going to put something on you right now that'll help you get over that. I'm going to play a progression for you that takes you through every single key on the guitar. And what that's going to force you to do, obviously, is to think in every key. We're going to play 4 bars on each one. And then I want to put one extra weight on your shoulders. And that's to be able to play all 12 keys without moving more than 1 fret in any direction. That's a tall order. I'm kind of scared of doing that myself, actually, if you want to know the truth. But I tell you what I'd like to do is I'm going to play through it one time, and I want you to kind of follow along with me and see how I'm playing it. Now, here's the key to being able to do this. You have to know 5 shapes of every chord. All right, so for instance, I play an A chord in 5th position. We know that one very well. Suppose I want to play a B chord and not move up to the 7th fret, but stay in that same position. There's a piece of a B chord right there. My index finger is playing right across the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd strings. I find the root down here. Might be a shape that you're not that familiar with, but it's a very useful one. Okay? And suppose I want to play a D chord. Well, there's a D chord right there. That's another shape. What about an F chord? We think, oh, well, see, F is up there or down here. But no, there's an F right here. Right? This is based on the same shape as you'd play if you played an open C chord down here in open position. And move your hand up the neck. Right? I'm a little bit out of tune there. Right? And then suppose, let's see, what's left? Suppose you wanted to play a G chord, but instead of moving down to the third position, you could play right there. That's kind of like an open D chord. Moved up the neck with the root right there. Now, if you've never thought about the other chords, we got our two basic bar chords off the 6th and 5th strings. If you haven't thought about the other ones, it's very difficult to suddenly just do that on the spot. But that's something to work towards, and being able to do that gives you freedom on the neck. You can play any key anywhere on the neck. That's an excellent exercise, so I highly recommend it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play over this progression one time. Well, I guess it's that time to say goodbye. I hope I haven't loaded your brain down with too many different concepts, because after all, let's face it, blues is a style of music. It's supposed to be simple and fun to play, and what I'm trying to put on you is something that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it didn't mean a thing to me, really. It's something that I've thought about a lot over the years, and in trying to pass it on to you in the terms that I'm using, it may make it sound like, oh, this is such a technical thing to do. But what I'm really after is not to make you think real hard while you play blues, but make you aware that there is a lot that goes on in blues. It's a simple style, but to make it sound good, you have to take a lot of care in choosing the notes that you play. And to choose those notes, you have to have a system. You have to know what you're after. And in the modern world, things happen awful quick. We're all trying to get somewhere in a hurry. And so the traditional method of learning blues, sitting down with a record and listening to the thing 500 times in a row and then picking out another one doing the same thing, sooner or later you got to do that. But you can take a few shortcuts and be aware when you listen what's going on behind the scenes. And I hope I've helped illuminate that for you. So we're going to play a little bit more on the way out, and I just want to tell you it's been a lot of fun, and I hope you have a lot of fun with this too, and I'll see you the next time.